how to make an octopus outdoor fence decoration. Now, I started with an image of an octopus, which I found on the web, and I just printed it out on a whole bunch of 8.5 by 11 sheets and then traced it onto a sheet of PVC. Now, you could do this out of wood. I choose to use PVC, which is a little bit more expensive because it should last forever. It'll never dry rot. I just cut out the outline with a jigsaw. There's no rocket science here. This stuff actually cuts very easily, actually easier than wood does. And I just took my time following the outline. There were some areas which I had to drill a hole through first in order to get the jigsaw blade down into it. I just used a speed bore for that. And then when I finished cutting out all of those areas, then I moved on to shaping the octopus. Now, the main tool for this job is going to be an angle grinder. This is a 4.5-inch angle grinder. I'm using a flap sanding wheel. It's a 60 grit. You could also get away with a 40 grit or an 80 grit, but anywhere in that 60 range will work. And I'm just going to taper down and follow each one of the lines along the tentacles so that I'm carving away the webbed area between each tentacle. Again, nothing difficult here. I'm just using the edge of the angle grinder to carefully carve that down. And you don't have to do it all in one shot. You can taper it a little bit and then come back and refine it or go a little bit deeper if you have to. And I did that for all of the webbing areas between the tentacles. And then I used the same angle grinder, same flap sanding wheel to start to round over each tentacle. And you don't have to, really get it round. You just want to remove some material here. And we're going to go back over all of these areas with an oscillating sander with an 80 grit and then 120 grit. The stuff sands very quickly also. Some of the areas you just can't get into with an angle grinder. And for those areas, I used a Dremel tool, just to break that corner and to start rounding over all of the edges. I wanted to make the suction cups for on the tentacles. So I found a piece of PEX tubing at Home Depot, a short length, and I'm just using a PVC tool to cut that into small slivers. And this is just going to be a visual representation of the octopus suction cups. So I spread some construction adhesive onto the area that I want the suction cups to be. And then I took each one of those little pieces of cut off PEX and pressed them into that construction adhesive. And I let that dry overnight. And really all this is doing is just giving a visual representation that the octopus has suction cups on its tentacles. This is what I ended up with. And I was pretty happy with that. And in fact, I ended up starting to paint the project. I gave it a base coat of kind of a greenish teal blue. And then I went back over and I added some purple. Seemed to like the purple a little bit better. I added the eyes with self-adhesive vinyl. I cut this out with a vinyl cutting machine called a Silhouette Cameo. And the same thing for the pupils. But you could paint those by hand. You could cut them out by hand out of self-adhesive vinyl. And then I looked at the tentacles and I wasn't real happy. They just looked too uniform. So I went back with some paintable painting caulk. And just went around it did a ring around each suction cup. So they wouldn't look, so uniform. And then, of course, I had to go back and paint each one of the tentacles again. I did it with light blue and then again with purple. So moving on, I wanted a high gloss finish on this. I'm using the Total Boat Maker Epoxy. I added some additional pearlescent colors, which really make the finished product kind of pop in the sunlight. I added a purple and a violet. And then I'm just using a hair dryer to push those colors around and kind of merge them and spread them out. It really is kind of a cool effect when you see the finished product. So instead of just painting them on or blobbing them on, you blow it around with the hairdryer. This is the finished piece. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, like and subscribe, and by all means, check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com. Thank you very much for watching.